James is an amazing trainer. However, he doesn't really like to evolve his Pokemon, which makes dealing with games like Scarlet quite difficult. So, will we be able to beat Pokemon Scarlet as James, or will we be blasting off again? We run into the 3 starters of the game, but none of these are James's starter. We need a Growly. We actually managed to find a shiny Shinx before we found a Growlithe under the level cap. Obviously, we put it out its misery. Night falls, and we do find a Growlithe with Intimidate, so obviously, we're going to catch it. And now that we've got our trusty start, let us get on to the first gym battle, being Katie and her bug types. Nimble gets burnt to a crisp thanks to our flamethrower. Tarantula is made of wool, so obviously we burn all the fibers away. Now, Teddiursa would have stood a chance, but it decided to terrestrialize into a bug type, giving it a severe weakness to the flamethrower that's coming out of our Growly. First badge has gone swimmingly. That being done, we can now get our next encounter, being a Hoppip. It's not the strongest, but it will prove useful, so obviously we catch it and put it on our team. The next challenge that we have to face is the Rock Titan in Klawf. It decides to use a block against us, but that doesn't matter as our Giga Drain knocks it to almost exactly half health. From here, they decide to Rock Smash us. However, it does nothing thanks to our Flying type, so what we're gonna do is retaliate and finish it off. It's not over though. It's gonna go and eat a Herba Mystica, power itself up, and that gives us round 2 against it. It's gonna start off by Rock Smashing us, which doesn't do much damage but does lower our defense, as we Giga Drain, doing about a 5th. Shelder then layers into it, lowering its defense, but it doesn't matter to us. It's then going to Rock Tomb into the Shelder, doing some decent damage as we Giga Drain, knocking it just above half, and Shelder using a Leer again. Klawf is then going to block so we can't escape, and this time we've switched to Bullet Seed. It unfortunately only hits 2 times, so it does less damage than the Giga Drain. And then on top of that, it's going to set off Klawf's Anger Shell. Shelder uses Water Gun, but it's not enough to take it out. However, the Rock Smash it uses on the next turn, even though it does a lot, it's not enough. So 1 Bullet Seed takes it down and gives us the first Titan defeated. Level cap's a bit higher now, so what we can do is we can run into a flying terrestrialized Meowth. After beating it down, it gives us the ability to catch it. So obviously we're gonna do that, and we now have James's most famous companion. With our buddy who's got the Flying Terror, I decide now is as good a time as any for us to get on to the next gym battle against Brassius and his grass types. He leads Petlil as we start with a Meowth. We're going to terrestrialize into our Flying type and Aerial Ace, not quite taking the Petlil out as it Mega Drains us, doing very little damage. From there, we can Aerial Ace 1 more time and we're going to take it down. Smoliv can also manage to withstand 1 attack. However, its tackle doesn't do too much to us. Obviously, from here, Smoliv will be taken out. Then the last person we've got to take on is going to be Sudowoodo. First turn in, we decide to switch into Growly because he's going to Intimidate and lower the attack. Unfortunately, even with that attack drop, we do get hit very heavily with the Rock Throw. Knowing I can't survive anything else, we need to switch, so I bring in Hoppip, who again almost gets taken out by a Rock Throw, even if they did have a Wiki Berry to restore some health. They can then get off a Fairy Wind, which is going to break Sudowoodo's sturdy. Unfortunately, it comes at the cost of us needing to let it go down here. Luckily, it being low on health, we can now bring Growlithe in again, who can use Flamethrower, and it somehow manages to survive and take us out. It's not the end of the world, because Meowth can come in, Aerial Ace it, and take it out. However, it's a very early gym. We shouldn't be needing to use all of our Pokemon yet. If this carries on throughout the challenge, I'm not even sure it's going to be possible. From there, we're going to be able to get our next encounter, being a Numel. Obviously, it's a great addition to have to the team, and James had loads of them. No, Hoppip, you're not allowed to evolve. James never owned a Jumpluff. Now that we've stopped that, let us get into the second Titan fight, being against Bombardier. It starts off by Rock Throwing us, doing a lot of damage, as Numel is going to retaliate with a Rock Tomb to get that speed drop. From there, we're going to switch out into Hoppip, and Hoppip is going to get cold because the wing attack comes in, it's super effective, and just wipes it out. That's not great, but it is going to give us a free switch into Growlithe. Growlithe, which is ideal. After the Intimidate, the wing attack it uses doesn't actually end up doing too much damage, and our flamethrower does a load on top of getting off a burn. And because we're faster, all we need to do is flamethrower one more time, and that gets rid of this first phase. But we don't have time to rest. We've got to get straight into that second phase. Numel is leading again. They're going to wing attack into the Knackley, allowing us to get a Rock Tomb off. Knackley is then going to use a Rock Throw and knock it just over half health. It attacks into Knackley again. However, this time with our double team, we're going to get it knocked into the red. Numel's done an amazing job. We don't want to let it go down, so we're going to switch out into Meowth and let Knackley get the final hit and defeat this Titan. We move on a little bit further and we can obtain one of James's greatest Pokemon, Magikarp. You know he loved it. Has as many team members as we can get, so let us get into the first team star battle, being against Giacomo. We're going to lead with our trusty Numel. Horniard starts off by hitting us pretty heavily with an Aerial Ace. However, we're going to return by incinerating into it, knocking it to the red. It's then going to Aerial Ace us, knocking us one shot. However, it cannot survive one more attack, so goes down. Horniard isn't the worry though. Reveroom is, and that's what's coming out now. It's going to use Wicked Talk and obviously wipe the floor with Numel. From there, we can send out Growlithe for that Intimidate, dropping the attack before switching out and into Magikarp, who beautifully takes her Metal Sound. From there, unfortunately, the beast that is Magikarp has to go down to a Snarl, because that's going to give us another switch into Growlithe for another Intimidate. We're then going to get hit with a Snarl for decent damage as we retaliate with a Flamethrower, not doing too much. After this, they use a Metal Sound against us and we use a Flame Wheel, but because of its monstrous defense, we do very similar damage. We're then going to switch into Meowth, who is going to get crit on the switch in from a Snarl. And unfortunately, because of that crit, the very next turn, we're now in range of being taken out, so that's another Pokemon down. Growlithe's going to come in again, and they're going to miss us with a Metal Sound, so our Flamethrower does full damage this time. Next turn, they Snarl us, so we do get that special attack lowered, so Flamethrower isn't doing as much damage. Then, from there, another Snarl is obviously going to take us out. Hoppip is our last resort, and although the Snarl doesn't do too much to it, neither does our Giga Drain to them. They Snarl us again, knocking us low as we retaliate using a Fairy Wind. But unfortunately, that is going to be it. We literally don't have the health to carry on. You see how little damage we're doing. We would need to tank 20 hits in order to be able to beat it. It seems James has blasted off again. I think we can beat it though, so let us get right back into beating Giacomo down. We lead Numel again, however, their Aerial Ace is going to allow us to set up a Sunny Day this turn. They then do it again, but this time we've got Earth Power, so we can take it out in a 1. Unfortunately, for the strategy to work, Numel does still have to go down here. This is going to allow Growlithe to come out. Growlithe gets hit with a Metal Sound and retaliates with a sun-boosted Flamethrower. Being low on defense is no good though, so we're going to switch into Magikarp, who literally just survives the Snarl. I'd prefer it to go down, but it's going to go down on the next turn regardless. This lets us bring Growlithe in again, and we get Snarled, lowering our special attack, but we can retaliate with another Flamethrower. Next turn, we are going to get Metal Sounded, but that's basically free damage in my eyes. After this, we're going to switch into Meowth, who takes the Snarl pretty decently, but the sunlight has faded now. Reveroom uses Metal Sound against us as we hit with Fury Swipes, but unfortunately, we only get 2, which is the minimum. Unfortunately for us, that does mean Meowth is going to go down on this next turn. Growlithe comes back in, and it's going to get Metal Sounded, but Flamethrower has knocked it incredibly low now. No one to risk anything. We're going to switch out and into Hoppip because it won't be taken out. Hoppip then manages to avoid a Metal Sound and get a Fairy Wind off. The next turn, it avoids it yet again, allowing us to get another Fairy Wind. Now it's one shot. It's gonna Snarl us again. We survive, but we're gonna go for Giga Drain. How has it survived? survived. That's ridiculous. This is going to let them get another snarl off, but we survive on 1 health thanks to what we recovered last turn. This means Hoppip is the one to take Giacomo down with a Giga Drain. What a hero. That being done, our Magikarp does get angry though, and he's going to evolve into the beauty that is Gyarados. Unfortunately, before we can carry on any further, Nemona wants to battle us. She leads Rock Ruff, which is going to Rock Throw into us for about a third. However, we retaliate with an Earth Power, taking it out. Next up is her Pawmi, but all it can do is use Dig and make us miss our attack. And we've got a Gyarados in the back. Switching to that, the flying type means Dig isn't going to hit it at all. Then now we know an electric move's coming, we'll switch right back into Numel, whose ground type makes it Avoid. Then Pawmi decides to use a charge, but unfortunately it's not good enough for it, and we take it out this turn. Lastly, she has her Florigato. This thing is pretty scary once it terastallizes, especially because it's using Hone Claws. On top of that, our Incinerate we use doesn't even do half damage. Luckily, it's going to use Hone Claws again, and it must have been a low roll last turn because this one will take it out. Woo, that was close. Hoppip, what have we told you? Stop trying to evolve. Lucky for us though, it's time for us to go on to the next gym battle, and that's going to be against Iono. She's going to start off by using her Wattrel to pluck against us, stealing our berry. However, Growlithe is having none of that. It retaliates with a flamethrower, critting and one-shotting the bird. Next up is Belly Bolt, and knowing that it's going to be using Water Gun, we're going to switch into Hoppip. Hoppip can then Giga Drain, but that is going to activate the Electromorphosis, meaning Spark almost takes us out as well as paralyzes us. I did give her a berry to cure the paralysis though, because I thought this might happen. We can then Giga Drain one more time, and that unfortunately is going to be the end of Hoppip for this battle. From there, we'll switch into Gyarados, who can hit it pretty heavily with a Crunch, even though it lowers its defense. The retaliating Spark coming our way is going to one-shot us. Growlithe is all we've got now, so we're going to use a Flamethrower, unfortunately not quite taking it out, allowing us to get hit with a Water Gun doing decent damage. After this, obviously, we're going to take it out using another Flamethrower. Unfortunately, Deluxio coming out on the next turn is faster, so it will be taking us out here. That's fine though, we can switch into Numel. It can tank a Bite pretty decently, and then retaliate with Earth Power, knocking it out. Now we've got Miss Magius coming out. However, we've got 2 Pokemon that she cannot hit. We can switch into Meowth on Hexes and switch into Numel on Charge Beams. After we do this for a few minutes and get rid of all the PP of one of the moves, Numel can start delivering some blows. And because it can't hit us, eventually this is going to lead to the demise of Miss Magius and giving us the 3rd gym badge. Now that's done, we'll get another Pokemon, being Marini. James loves his Marini, even if he did give her up in the end. After this, we've got Mela and her fire types, so Marini is going to make their debut straight away. Torkoal's first out, and it's going to use his Drought ability to set up the sun. However, we don't care. On the first turn, we Rain Dance, getting rid of that, making sure her Flame Wheel does nothing. We can then Surf, which does some decent damage, but doesn't take it out, so it's going to Clear Smog into us. However, not very effective as well. And then the next turn, the Torkoal will become a Fallen one. After this, she's going to send out the Starmobile, but all we need to do is use a few Surfs. Once we're at the end, wait, we didn't actually manage to take her out with 1 Pokemon. That is crazy. I guess in the end, the Pokemon that has to clutch it up is going to be Gyarados and a Water Pulse. Either way, we got past her, so that is happy days. Next up, we're going to have a Titan battle in Orthworm. It's going to start out by headbutting us and actually managing to make us flinch. However, it uses Wrap on the next turn, so it isn't going to get so lucky. So we can finish it in one with a Flamethrower, even getting a Burn to rub it in. Going a little bit further, we can get ourselves another buddy, being Cacnea. Obviously, getting that on our team is essential, mainly because the next challenge is going to be Kofu and their water types. Cacnea starts off by getting hit with a pluck very heavily. We're then going to use a Trailblaze to up our speed. Unfortunately, though, we're still slower on the next turn. To be honest, I didn't do the damage calcs. I expected to be faster. Therefore, we have lost here. I don't have another plan set up, and unfortunately, we don't make it through Kofu. Gyarados is strong, but with nothing super effective, that Crabominable just ruined our day. However, we went into round 2 with a better plan. This time, we're leading with Gyarados. Gyarados is able to get a crunch against the Veluza, doing decent damage as it gets hit with a slash, unfortunately being crit. From here, one more crunch is more than enough to get rid of this little tuner. Then, when we've got Wug Trio, what we first do is switch into Hoppip, who Headbutt doesn't do too much. Unfortunately, though, that must have been a low roll because the following one takes Hoppip out. On the plus side, that gives us a free switch into Cacnea, who gets hit with a Headbutt, but then has a Giga Drain coming in, so earns all its health back and takes it out in the same turn. Crabominable is then going to miss a slam against us as we hit it with a Giga Drain for about half health. And then the next turn, it is going to hit his slam, but it's too little too late. We survive, so our Giga Drain is going to go off, and we're going to take it out, giving us the 4th gym badge. I then decide to go to the forest, trying to find an Amoonguss, because we're not allowed a fungus. Guess what? James never had one, so we've got to catch it in its form that James had it. Unfortunately, we find none. One thing we are going to find, though, is going to be Atticus, the 3rd Team Star member. They're going to lead Stuntank, and we're going to lead with Numel. Numel's going to get hit with a Sucker Punch pretty heavily. However, we're going to use an Earth Power to knock it into the red. Because he's Sucker Punching, I decide the best thing to do is set up an Amnesia, and that actually goes to +4 because of Simple on the Numel. I use one more, and that's going to max out our special defense. Then forget about Simple and click it again. Obviously, it doesn't work because we're already at +6. Well done. It's going to keep trying to Sucker Punch, so we set up a Sunny Day. Then, the following turn, it's going to use Toxic against us. Unfortunately, we forgot to equip a Berry, and our Earth Power can go off and take it out, but now we're poisoned. Reveroom quickly comes out, and that is just going to annihilate our Numel. After this, we bring out Marini, but unfortunately, a Bulldoze knocks us into the red, as Surf does next to nothing to them. This means Marini is no more because that goes down and the sunlight fades. Gyarados is our next Pokemon, which gets an Intimidate on the switch in. And then we're going to Water to Rastalize to do some decent damage. But Reveroom is faster and uses Sludge and knocking us for a bit of damage. Our Aquatail almost takes it out. Then next turn, it sludges again, this time poisoning us, but Gyarados does have a berry equipped, so we get rid of it. Then from there, obviously, it's going to go down being on such low health. Next up is Muck, which tanks our Aquatail pretty decently, and then uses a Sludge Wave, knocking us for okay damage. Aquatail thankfully hits again and takes out the Muck, but then the Reveroom comes in, and the Reveroom just needs to use one Noxious Talk, and we go down. And by we, I literally mean we. It takes down every single one of my remaining Pokemon in one attack. But we're not giving up here. How many times did James and the gang try and get Pikachu? Exactly, as many as it took. We're going to lead with Numel again, and this turn we get Toxic off the bat. However, we learn from our mistakes and have a berry equipped to get rid of it. On top of that, we're going to set up a substitute to avoid it. Next turn, they try and Sucker Punch, but what we're going to do is set up an Amnesia. That turn replays itself, getting us to maxed out special defense. Then they're going to go for Venoshock, not doing too much because our special's now through the roof, but I misclicked and went for it again. It's going to Sucker Punch again, and we're going to set up a Curse, lowering our speed, but getting our attack and defense through the roof. Thanks to Sucker Punches, we are able to get maxed out on all of these stats. From there, Skunktank's gonna Venoshock us, but it's not enough, so our Bulldoze says bye-bye. Reveroom tries its luck by using a Sludge, but not even that breaks it, and obviously 4 times effective, it's gonna go down. Muck is big and gooey, so its Sludge Wave will break our substitute. However, obviously a Bulldoze is enough to get rid of it. Starmobile comes out next, but honestly, the Noxious Talk does next to nothing against us, and we knock it to just over half health in one hit. Since it can't do anything to us, even if it crit, it wouldn't be doing much. I think you know where this goes. 2 more, and we're gonna take it out. Numal only. Atticus down is gonna lead us directly into the Larry fight. I want to show something off though. We've taught our Gyarados Dragon's Dance. Hopefully this will be good enough to help us in the late game when we become incredibly weak due to non-evolutions. Komala is going to yawn us here as well. I'm going to set up one more as Komala slams and crits, knocking us incredibly low. We then go to sleep, but we had a Chesto Berry to wake ourselves up. From here, we're going to Terrasilize into the water type and use an Aqua Tail to get rid of this little koala. The Dunsparce obviously doesn't like getting wet because that goes down to 1 attack also. And finally, we have Staraptor coming out with an Intimidate. It's going to Terrasilize into a normal typing, losing its ground immunity. But unfortunately for it, our Aqua Tail is going to connect and one-shot it as well. Nice and easy. Nemona doesn't want to give us a chance to rest because she knows she's going to lose and decides to take us on here. She's going to be leading with Lycanroc, who's going to Accelerock into us for decent damage as we set up a Dragon's Dance. It's going to Accelerock us again, but we can Aqua Tail and take it out. Next up is Pormo, but we're faster, so 1 Bulldoze is more than enough to get rid of it. Next up is going to be her Goomy. This thing does manage to survive a Bulldoze and retaliates with a Dragon Pulse, knocking us to just 6 HP. However, next turn, it will be going down because of this. Lastly, we have her Florigato. It's going to Terrasilize into the grass type. It's actually going to quick attack into me, taking Gyarados down. Now, for those of you who don't know, Florigato's signature move, Flower Trick, always crits and is incredibly strong. Just look how much damage it does to our Growlithe here. Growlithe retaliates with a Flamethrower, but it's not enough to one-shot it, unfortunately. Cacnea's grass type, so resists the move, but will still go down to it. How ridiculous is that? And I think you know where this is going. If a Pokemon that resists it will go down in one, everything else that doesn't resist it is going to go down, and we actually lose to Nemona here. Damn, I'm annoyed. I think if we'd had the rest between her and Larry, we might have scraped it through. I'm not having it though. We've taken a loss. Let us go and get a win by taking on Rhyme. The battle's gonna start off by Gyarados getting hit with a Sucker Punch and a critical slash. From there, we retaliate into the Banette with a Crunch, knocking it low as Growlithe flamethrowers the Mimikyu. Her crowd will then give all our attacks a bit of a boost. This time, Sucker Punch goes into Gyarados again. However, the slash is going to go into the Growlithe. We retaliate by crunching into Mimikyu first and then into Banette, taking it out. And because of that, Rhyme's crowd boosts us even more. Mimikyu is then going to slash into Growlithe, and I gave a berry, but unfortunately it was the wrong one and confuses it. Luckily for us, Gyarados attacks next and he's going to crunch into the Houndstone, taking it out, and confusion doesn't end up being an issue as Growlithe breaks through it and takes out Mimikyu. From here, I know she's going to discharge, so I decide to switch both of our Pokemon out into Numal and Cacnea respectively. She's then going to Terrasilize and hit a discharge, but obviously it doesn't do too much to either of these. We're then going to switch both of our Pokemon out. This turn, it's going to be Meowth and Marini coming out. The Hex actually almost takes Marini out. From here, we're going to switch out and into Gyarados as Marini uses Wide Guard, making it so Toxtricity can't attack. And because Wide Guard isn't like Protect and it can just be used constantly, we just need to keep on using it and have Gyarados take down the Toxtricity in a couple of turns. Who would have known the 6th gym badge would be so simple? Next up, we've got the 4th Titan being Great Tusk. It's going to start off hitting into us with a rapid spin to up its speed. We're then going to retaliate with an Aqua Tail, knocking it to just over half health. Then on the following turn, we're both going to repeat our moves, and this is going to be the final straw for the Great Tusk. Now that that's done, I'm ready to get some revenge against Nemona. Let's get into the battle. She starts off making her Lycanroc use a Rock Slide against our Gyarados and actually flinching us. That sucks. We're going to switch into Growlithe, and even after the Intimidate goes off, the Rock Slide does mega damage. From there, what we're going to do is switch back into Gyarados, who can now survive an attack, not just low enough that its Margot Berry will heal its health. It then Rock Slides into us again, doing decent damage, and allows us to set up a Dragon's Dance. From there, we can Aqua Tail and get rid of the Lycanroc. Then next out is going to be Poor Me, and we use a Bulldoze, but unfortunately it just manages to survive. This means a Spark is coming our way and taking us out. Numel can't get Sparked though, so we bring that in. It gets quick attacked, but a Flamethrower will finish the job. Against Sliggoo, the first thing we're gonna do is switch out and go into Cacnea on the Water Pulse. Cacnea's then gonna get hit very heavily with a Dragon Pulse. We eat our little berry up. However, our payback doesn't do as much damage as we want, even though it gets a crit. This will mean the end for Cacnea on the next turn. Not a good sign. Marini comes out next, and Dragon Pulse knocks us for just over half as we Liquidation. Unfortunately, though, the next attack will take us down. I try my luck with Numel, but just as I expected, a Water Pulse will come out and get rid of it. And our final Pokemon is Meowth, who will outspeed and manage to take the Goomy out. But that's not all. We've got her Floragato. We're both going to Terrasilize, and that allows me to just survive the Flower Trick. Our Aerial Ace is nowhere near enough to taking it out. This means the next turn, she's going to outspeed, take us out, and there's no hope now. The Growlithe in the back really can't do anything, so it gets taken out, and we've lost to her again. If we can't beat her here, how are we going to beat her in the champion battle? No time to be feeling down about ourselves, though. What we're going to do is we're going to go right back on into it and the Tulip battle. We're going to Dragon's Dance for the boost in speed and attack as we get Zen Headbutt pretty heavily. That turn then replays itself, this time putting us at +2. And on the following turn, we miss our Aqua Tail, meaning the next Zen Headbutt knocks us really low. Luckily, it didn't take us out here though, so we can Terrasilize into the Water type and hit the Aqua Tail this time, taking it out. And would you look at that, the rain's coming down, so there's nothing Tulip can do. We win this battle by just using 3 more Aqua Tails. And on top of that, after the battle, our whole team now wants to try and evolve. Stop it, you guys. You know James doesn't have evolved Pokemon. And there's literally nothing between now and the 8th gym badge. So how about we just go and get it? Grusha and his ice types are no joke. Frostmoth is going to start out by using a Tailwind. However, we'll take it out with a Flame Charge. Because of that Tailwind, though, the Beartic is faster and we'll just use Earthquake to annihilate Growlithe. Would have been cool to beat this gym with it, but I suppose we're going to have to rely on Gyarados. Gyarados Terrastalizes, and it does actually get flinched on this first turn. Second turn is going to hit us with an Earthquake for good damage as we set up a Dragon's Dance. And much to our joy, the Tailwind has now petered out. We have just enough health for one more turn of setup. And then from here, we're going to use Aqua Tail to take Beartic out. So Titan then comes out, and unfortunately, our Aqua Tail is going to miss. But its Ice Spinner isn't enough to take us out, and we're actually healthier than when we started against it. This turn, Aqua Tail will connect, though, and take it down. And then, obviously, Altaria is nowhere near as bulky as that bugger. So Altaria is going to be taken out in one full swoop. Who would have thought James could make it to 8 gym badges? Going on from there, we can get our final encounter, and that's going to be an Amoonguss. However, it is too high leveled for us to use it just yet, which is a massive shame as it would have been useful for the next fight because Ortega has their fairy types. We're going to start off with Gyarados, who gets an Intimidate off while coming in. and then can use a Thrash. Azumarill is going to counter by using Charm, harshly lowering our attack, making our next Thrash do next to no damage. Luckily here, it is going to miss its Play Rough though. And then for that little bit of extra luck, we are going to get one more Thrash off, critting and taking down the Azumarill. We get confused, but it's fine because I equipped a berry to get rid of this. Having lowered attack, I don't really want to stay in, so what we're going to do is we're going to switch into Numel, who tanks a Play Rough beautifully. Next turn, it is going to get Body Slam though, and that is going to wipe it out. Bring out Gyarados, and now getting the Intimidate on the Wigglytuff. We're going to use a Dragon Dance from there, and the Play Rough doesn't end up doing too much to us. We can get another one off. However, all of our effort is now ruined because Wigglytuff is going to Charm us. It's then going to Play Rough into us again as we use another Dragon's Dance. And unfortunately, the next turn, it's going to Body Slam us and actually get a Paralysis, which sucks. Thanks to the speed boost I've got, even under Paralysis, we're still faster. Therefore, I can use an Aqua Tail and take it out in one. Dash Bun is then going to come out and we Aqua Tail it, but it survives in the red. And then it's going to retaliate with a Play Rough, taking Gyarados down. From here, we're going to switch in Growlithe, which gets an Intimidate. And it gets crunched into, but it doesn't do too much damage. However, I forgot about its ability Well-Baked Body and use Flame Charge into it. Dash Bun is gonna crunch into us and do some decent damage. And then because we gave it a defense boost, the crunch we use on this turn actually does next to no damage. And unfortunately, because of this mistake, Growlithe is going to go down here. Luckily, Marini can come out. It can take a hit pretty decently. And then from there, can finish off Dash Bun with a Venoshock. That does mean we're going to make it to the Starmobile. However, we're incredibly weakened. It's going to use Steel Roller against us, not doing much damage. And we're going to Venoshock, doing a decent amount. We then get Magical Talked as we use a Recover to try and get our health back. From here, it's going to use Confuse Ray, and unfortunately, we're going to hit ourselves in Confusion. This means next turn, it's going to use Magical Talk and knock us into the red. However, we do snap out, so Recover is going to go off. It Confuse Rays us on the next turn. However, we break through it and do manage to use our Recover. Luckily, the next turn, our Venoshock is going to hit it pretty well. However, from here, it's going to crit us with a Magical Talk, so our Recover doesn't give us back as much health as it has in the past. And we get hit again. It's hitting us incredibly hard at this point. We only have one more heal we can use. Obviously, after we've used this, it's game over. We've kind of got to Terastallize and hope we hit for good damage. Unfortunately, our Venoshock will knock it to half health. However, now Spin Out will be able to take us out because it's no longer resisted by our Water type. And unfortunately, Meowth and Cacnea cannot do a thing against this. We have lost this. However, I think with a better strategy, we'll be able to get past it. So let us get right back into the battle. We're still using the same lead because I want that Intimidate. However, now we're going to switch again straight away into Growlithe for its Intimidate. And this is an option that we can do 6 times to knock Azumarill to -6, especially because the moves it's going to use for Growlithe and Gyarados are perfectly resisted by the other types. Once it's -6, we're going to go into our trusty Pokemon, being Numel. From here, we're going to Terastallize into the ground typing in order to lose the fire so we're not 4 times weak to a water move. Even with that, though, it does hit us pretty hard. Luckily, we're using Curse, so we're getting our attack and defense up quite quickly. By the time we get the 3rd of these off, we're on 59 HP. Its Aqua Tail's gonna hit us all right, and we're gonna use Substitute, sacrificing a 1/4 of our HP. However, it also activates our Berry. Aqua Tail isn't going to break our sub, so we can retaliate by using an Earthquake, obviously one-shotting Azumarill. Wigglytuff's Play Rough just gets batted off, and an Earthquake wipes it out of here. Dash Bun does the same, but misses, allowing Numel to annihilate it. Then we've got Reverum. It uses Magical Talk, and that finally breaks our Substitute as we retaliate with an Earthquake. It then Steel Rollers, because we've got such a beefy defense now, it does nothing, and we can retaliate with one more attack, taking it out. and winning this battle with a numeral of all things. That's not it for Team Star though. There's one member left, being Eri and her fighting types. We're gonna lead with Gyarados, as the Intimidate is incredibly useful against the Toxicroak. We're then going to use a Dragon's Dance as it hits into us with a Poison Jab. We can get off one more Dragon's Dance as it Poison Jabs into us again. From there, we can Terrasilize and use Waterfall, and Toxicroak will go down. Simeon, unfortunately, is incredibly weak, so follows the exact same fate. Annihilate has its anger washed away by us attacking it. Lucario crumbles before the might of our Waterfall. Then out comes Reverum. We're going to knock it to under half with a Waterfall. However, doing this has raised its attack. It also goes for a Shift Gear here, which isn't great because it now outspeeds us. And because of that, we're in a bad situation because it outspeeds and Gyarados is going down here. We're going to send in Growlithe for that Intimidate. However, it can't survive an attack, so I decide to switch into Mareanie. This was a bad call as we've allowed it to Shift Gear again. It's then going to hit us with a high horsepower. Obviously, Mareanie goes down here. Growlithe then comes out getting the Intimidate again. And that Intimidate has just allowed it to survive a Combat Talk. Its Flamethrower that it's going to use, though, doesn't do an awful lot of damage. Numel's our next option, and it goes down to about half after a high horsepower, allowing us to Flamethrower, knocking it into the red. However, from here, Eri just throws. She goes for another Shift Gear, and that allows Numel to get off one more Flamethrower and take it out. It's really lucky here, as we only had one more Pokemon in the back, but we got past it either way. That done is going to lead us into Dondozo, where you're finally going to get see Amoonguss in action. Dondozo starts off by Water Pulsing us as we Giga Drain, knocking it to a quarter HP. Greedent then decides to Tail Whip. On the next turn, Dondozo is going to miss an Aqua Tail, allowing us to start charging our Solar Beam. Dondozo is then going to Body Slam into Greedent, doing decent damage and paralyzing it, as our Solar Beam hits it incredibly hard. And then because of the layers that Greedent's used before, it uses a takedown and Dondozo will be taken out here. Unfortunately, that's not it though. We now have to face Tatsugiri. Tatsugiri Dragon Pulses into us, knocking us just over half as we Toxic at it. Greedent then uses takedown, doing pretty good damage. Tatsugiri then uses Muddy Water, which doesn't do much, but it will lower Greedent's accuracy. And our Giga Drain hits it for Slithers. Luckily, Greedent is here to be beefy and use a takedown. From here, I decide we're not doing enough damage, so I'm going to switch into Mareanie, who gets hit with an Icy Wind on the switch in. Greedent will then use takedown, knocking it down to 7 HP. From here, Tatsugiri is going to take out the Greedent. However, we're going to Venoshock into it, doing brilliant damage. Then next turn, Tatsugiri has wasted all its time. It taunts into us. Obviously, this is a mistake, as one more Venoshock is all we need to finish off the 5th and final Titan. And that there is going to start the end game. Now it's time for us to start taking on the Elite Four. First of which is going to be Rika and their ground types. We're going to start off with Amoonguss, who's going to Terrasilize into the grass type. Wishcash just ends up going for a Future Sight, allowing us to get a Giga Drain off, taking it out. Camerupt is then going to come out. Obviously, we're not going to switch in, so we'll bring Gyarados into the fray. As you can expect, Fire Blast, even critting, does next to nothing. Gyarados can then Waterfall into the Camerupt, and obviously it's going down. However, we will take the Future Sight attack here. Donphan then comes out, so I decide to switch into Mareanie, and they take a Stone Edge quite well. Hoping it's going for a ground move, we can now switch into Amoonguss. It was going for Stone Edge, but it missed. It's then going to Poison Jab into us, doing decent damage as we get off a Spore, putting it to sleep. Obviously, with it being asleep, we can use a Giga Drain, gain all our health back, but it survives thanks to a Sturdy. And it's great because it doesn't wake up on the next turn, so obviously it's going to go down here. Trio comes out next, and it sets up a Sandstorm. However, Sandvale ain't going to help it here. Giga Drain one-shots it. And last up is going to be her Clodsire, which is going to Terrasilize into the ground typing. It then protects, which is going to stop us from using Spore. However, next turn, we will outspeed, allowing us to get our Spore off against it. And it stays asleep the entire time when we just need to use 2 more Giga Drains to take it out. obviously giving us the first win against the Elite Four. Leading up to that, we're going to go straight into the next battle, being Poppy and her Steel types. We lead with Numel, and we decide to terrestrialize in order to lose our Fire typing. We're also faster, so we get Curse off, raising our defense before it high horsepowers into us doing nothing. It's then going to Stealth Rock, which doesn't do much for it. However, we're going to use another Curse. We're also getting Leftovers recovery here, so it's ideal. From here, it's going to Heavy Slam, allowing us to get to +6 in defense and attack. It then Heavy Slams again as we use Amnesia to get to +4. Another Heavy Slam comes our way. However, this turn, we're retaliating with a Flame Charge, which is going to take it out and raise our speed. Corviknight is faster and Brave Birds into us. And on top of that, our Flame Charge on the next turn isn't going to take it out. However, if it does recoil again, it will kill itself. Because she doesn't want to do that, she body presses for minimal damage as we use a last Flame Charge on it. Thanks to all the speed boosts we've got, we are now faster than Bronzong, so that goes down in one hit. Magnezone is obviously going to survive a hit. However, it just wastes its turn by going for Light Screen. And then that is it for the rest of this fight. None of them can outspeed us, and none of them can do major damage, so obviously we take both her remaining Pokemon out in one hit. What a beautiful way to go. Then we're gonna have the triumphant return of Larry. Well, hopefully not that triumphant, because we're gonna win. He leads off with his Tropius using Sunny Day as we set up an Amnesia. He's then gonna Solar Beam into us, not doing too much, as we set up another Amnesia and get a bit of recovery thanks to our Leftovers. Now that he's doing basically no damage to us, we can set up a Substitute, and from there we can Curse. Obviously, he's not going to break the sub unless he crits. And on top of that, on the second Curse we use, the Sunlight is actually going to fade after it. Obviously, he's going to Sunny Day again, but I know he can't do anything, so I decided to Curse on this turn. From here, we're going to take a Solar Beam decently and then set up another Substitute. And now that's all done, obviously he doesn't break through our sub, and we can Flame Charge in and take Tropius out. Staraptor's Intimidate won't go off thanks to our sub. However, it will Brave Bird into us, breaking our Substitute, but we do still one-shot it. Oricorio is next, and this thing is going to get off a Teeter Dance against us. Luckily, we don't hit ourselves in confusion, so we take it out. Altaria is next, and it's going to Dragon Pulse us. However, we snapped out of our confusion, so we can Flame Charge into it for about a third. That turn basically repeats itself, except we are now faster, so we go first. We're then going to knock it into the red, but as you can see, it's really doing no damage to us. And because we're healthy enough, I decide to set up a Substitute, because obviously Altaria's not breaking it. And from here, bye-bye Altaria. Last up is his Flamigo. Obviously, the first thing he's going to do is to Rastalite it into the Flying type, and our Flame Charge hits it for about half. It's going to retaliate with a Liquidation, breaking our Substitute. But since we're faster than it and we did more than half damage, we can attack it, break the diamond on its head, and win the third Elite Four battle. That leaves one more member of the Elite Four, Hassel and his Dragon types. The first thing we're going to do, leading with Gyarados, is get Super Fanged, knocking us to half HP. However, we're going to set up a Dragon Stance. From here, we're going to Outrage, and obviously that's going to take the Noivern down. Dragalge isn't much bulkier, so obviously we finish that off too. Unfortunately here, we do get confused. However, we thought about that and gave ourselves a berry. Haxorus is going to come out, but obviously that follows the exact same fate. Flapple is, well, Flapple, so I think you know what happens here. Unfortunately, though, we are going to get confused after the Flapple, missing the 50% twice. That really sucks. Baxcalibur is going to Terrasilize into the Dragon typing. We're going to attack, and we hit ourselves in confusion. Damn, we lost Gyarados here. With us not attacking, Baxcalibur's Glaive Rush will obviously annihilate us. I'm then going to switch into Amoonguss, and he gets Icicle Crashed, but we can set up a Toxic. And although he's faster, so he will take us out, that Toxic damage is going to keep on stacking. Marini gets one shot. Who really cares? Meowth gets broken. It doesn't matter. Numel gets the Glaive. Well, guess what? That's just enough time for Poison to take him out, having Growlithe in the back to win us the battle. Whew, that was close. And without further ado, that is going to lead us into the champion battle, being against Geeta. She's going to use Lumina Crash, which does quite a bit of damage. However, I'm going to use Roar to get rid of this bugger. This is going to bait in Veluza. And then from here, we're going to switch out into Gyarados, because obviously Veluza can't do much against it. We're just going to then set up some Dragon Dances. And by the time Veluza gets us low enough to activate our berry, we've got 3 set up. With 3 set up, we're going to crunch into it and finish it off. King Gambit's up next, so we terrestrialize, allowing us to use Waterfall and take it out. Go-Go then comes out, so we crunch into it, not quite taking it out, but it uses a bulk up. This means one more snap down, and we've got rid of it. Avalugg is then going to come out, and it will survive a Waterfall from us. However, Body Press isn't quite enough to take us out. One more Waterfall is more than enough to get rid of it. Then we see the return of a Spathra. Now that we're set up, we're faster than it, so we can crunch into it, get a crit for good measure, and take it out. Lastly is her Glamora. Once she terrestrializes, it's game over though. You are now a Soul Rock type. Waterfall is super effective. Bye. Geeta. The battles do not end there though. Let's get into the battle against Clavel. He's going to start off with Oranguru using a Yawn against us. However, I'm going to put you to sleep with Spore. From there, we can now switch out and we're going to bring in Numel. Oranguru stays asleep, so it allows Numel to get off a Flame Charge. We can then use a Curse, and Oranguru is going to stay asleep again. From here, he'll use a Reflect as we set up another Curse. Then he's going to Foul Play as we max out our stats. Finally, he Yawns us as we set up an Amnesia. Foul Play is doing nothing against us, and now we're setting up a Substitute. On top of that, we fall asleep, but we had a Chesto Berry. Now we Flame Charge into Oranguru, and thankfully, the Reflect is gonna wear off here. Unfortunately though, it is gonna take our Substitute out with the next move, meaning when we take it out, we're now frail. Abominous Snow is just faster than us, so it can set up an Aurora Veil, upping its defenses and allowing it to survive a Flame Charge. Now we're faster though, so we're gonna Substitute as they Blizzard, unable to break it. Then we're gonna use another attack and take it out. Poltergeist, thanks to the Aurora Veil, will survive an attack, and we activate its weak armor. Then it goes for Shell Smash of all things. But when it attacks into us with Shadow Ball, our Substitute takes all the damage, and the next Flame Charge will finish it off. Next up is Houndoom though, and because it has Flash Fire, we can't stay in. Therefore, we're gonna switch out. Obviously, the best choice is to bring in Gyarados, who actually does get pretty decently with a Dark Pulse. It then gets hit with a Thunderfang, and it doesn't quite knock us out, as we're gonna use a Dragon's Dance. From there, one Waterfall is going to get rid of it. Amoonguss comes out, so we use Outrage, but unfortunately it's not enough, and it allows it to Spore us. With us asleep, it can use a Hex on the next turn, and Gyarados will be the first victim of this battle. We're then going to bring in Growlithe. Growlithe uses Flame Charge and finishes the Amoonguss off. But the effect spore activates, putting us to sleep. His last Pokemon is Quaquaval, so obviously expecting a water move, we're going to switch into Amoonguss. He's going to Water Terror and then Aqua Step, not doing too much. And on top of that, because it hit us directly, our effect spore goes off and puts it to sleep. Obviously, it stays asleep, allowing us to get a Giga Drain off. And then that's all they row. It doesn't manage to wake up the next turn, so one last drain is all that we need to get rid of Clavel. With Clavel down, we are able to face Penny here. Let us see if we can beat the evolutions. Wheelie Gyarados, who obviously gets Baby Doll Eyes lowering its attack, but Dragon Dance evens that out. It then decides not to go for it the next turn, so we can get our attack up, but Dark Pulse does decent damage. Gonna do this till we get to +3, which it does do decent damage to us in that meantime. However, once we're there, we can terrestrialize and use a Waterfall. Jolteon is gonna come out next, but we taught Bulldoze, so that gets one shot. Then next up is Leafeon. Unfortunately, the crunch we use isn't enough to take it out, allowing it to retaliate with a Leaf Blade and take us out. From here, we bring in Growlithe, and they're going to use Baby Doll Eyes against us as we Flame Charge. They use Baby Doll Eyes again, but they're on a Slither, so obviously they go down this turn. Vaporeon is up next, and I know we're not going to survive, so we're going to switch into Cacnea on the water move. Oh, also baby-dalized. How weird. It's then going to Aurora Beam Cacnea, almost taking it out, as we can retaliate with a Giga Drain, doing just under half. From here, though, it is faster, so it will take us out. And we're just going to go right into Amoonguss. Amoonguss gets hit heavy by an Aurora Beam thanks to it critting. However, our Giga Drain does awesome damage too. The next one obviously isn't going to hit as hard, so the next attack we use will take Vaporeon out. Against Flareon's Flare Blitz, we switch into Mareanie, who takes a lot more damage than it should for a water type. And with Flareon outspeeding, what's going to happen here is the next Flare Blitz is going to take us out. I know Meowth's faster though, so we switch into Meowth, who can get a slash off doing decent damage before being taken down themselves. And then we can go into Growlithe. Growlithe gets Intimidate, and we can use a Howl with it, as Flareon uses Flare Blitz to take itself out. Obviously, we're down to our last Pokemon, being Sylveon, which gets the terrestrialization of Fairy, and we're faster, so can hit it with a Flame Charge. On top of that, its Shadow Ball leaves us on 10 HP. Even if we do have a berry to heal, we don't heal enough, though. This means, although we can Flame Charge on the next turn, the Moonblast will finish us off here. This leads us down to our last Pokemon, being at half health, which is Amoonguss. It just manages to survive a Moonblast, allowing it to get a Spore off. And since Sylveon is going to stay asleep, we can Giga Drain. Lucky for us, Sylveon stays asleep again. As if it woke up here, I think we would have gone down. But because it didn't, we have won the battle. Incredibly close, though. Next up, we are going to have Arven. We lead with Amoonguss, who is faster than Greedent, so we'll Spore it and put it to sleep. It wakes up as we switch into Gyarados, and Psychic Fan's doing decent damage. From here, I switch into Growlithe on the Body Slam, and I'm glad I did, as it paralyzes. Then we're going to go back into an Amoonguss on the Earthquake. However, we're going to Spore it again, putting it to sleep. The second time we bring Gyarados in, it does stay asleep. Then we can use a Dragon Dance up in our attack and speed. We can get off a second one, and it will end up waking up. Luckily, this Body Slam isn't too bad. And we're gonna get to +5 before the Body Slam finally paralyzes, but we heal with a Cherry Berry. And then unfortunately for Arven, that is literally game over. We one-shot all of his Pokemon from here on out and get him defeated. All of that's gonna lead us into the final rival battle versus Nemona. She has beat us the last 2 times, so is this possible? We're gonna lead with Meowth. She's gonna use a Stone Edge against us, which misses, and we can Charm, lowering their attack. She's then gonna Stealth Rock, but we're gonna Charm again, and then she's gonna Stone Edge us, but it's too little too late. She's at -6 now. Another Stone Edge is gonna come our way as we Trailblaze into it, and now we're faster. We can Trailblaze, knocking it low. However, we are going to go down here. This will give us a free switch into Gyarados, though, who can instantly Terrestrialize into the Water type, dodge the Stone Edge, and set up a Dragon's Dance. He's then going to Accelerock, allowing us to set up these Dragon Dances for free. He actually managed to make it to +4 before he switches to Drill Run. And at this point, I don't want to chance a crit, so we're just going to Waterfall into it, taking it out. Formart gets bulldozed right on out of here. The Dunsparce gets split into 3 parts with a waterfall. Fourth one comes out, and obviously we're gonna corrode it away. Goodra then comes out, which could have been a bit risky, but it's fine. We took Crunch, and that is more than enough to get rid of this bugger. Last up is gonna be her Meowscarada. Obviously, she terrestrializes it into a grass type. We're gonna Crunch, but we don't quite get the KO. This is going to allow her to get a Flower Trick off, and guess what? Take us out because it's a crit. Wonderful. She's also bragging about the crit as if it isn't part of the move's gimmick. From there, we're going to bring out Growlithe, but unfortunately, the Flower Trick is going to be too much for it. We're going to have Amoonguss come in, who gets hit pretty heavily with a Shadow Claw, and I accidentally used Spore, forgetting it doesn't work on grass types. Luckily, Shadow Claw doesn't do too much damage on the next turn, allowing us to Giga Drain, and that is Nemona defeated. It seems Amoongus was the missing answer we needed. And all of that done is going to lead us on to making our way to Area 0. This is where the beastly Sada awaits. Can we defeat the prehistoric Pokemon? They're going to lead Meowth, who's going to terrestrialize into the flying type, almost knocking Slitherwing out with an aerial ace and getting hit with a low sleep to lower its speed. Unfortunately, that speed drop does mean a Zen Headbutt on the next turn will take it out. Gyarados can come out as our second fastest though, and Waterfall finishing it off. This is going to bait in Flutter Mane, so we switch in Numel on the expected Thunderbolt. However, now we've not got a Terra, and Earth Power actually manages to finish Numel off. Mainly because it crit, but it still sucks. I decide to bring Growlithe in next, but unfortunately, a Power Gem is more than enough to get rid of it. Next up is going to be Cacnea, who survives on 1 HP thanks to a Focus Sash. And it's going to use Destiny Bond, so that means the next turn, when Flutter Mane takes us out with a Shadow Ball, although we go down, so do they. This is going to bring in Screamtail, and I'm going to bring in my Gyarados as a counter to this. It Play Roughs into us as I set up a Dragon's Dance. We Dragon Dance again as the Play Rough does nothing. After the third one, though, the Play Rough hits us and crits, knocking us to just 17 HP. Even though we have a berry to heal, that sucks. This basically means we can get one more off, but the Play Rough on the next turn lowers our attack. I do the quick maths, and without a high roll, she won't take us out, so we do one more, and we do survive, thankfully. This means we can Waterfall on the next turn, taking it out. Sandy Shocks isn't faster, so we'll fall to the same fate. Brute Bonnet, however, has Sucker Punch. Obviously, we don't want it to hit us, so we have to use Dragon's Dance until it stops. Once it's out, we can Waterfall into it, but it's not enough to take it out, and a Payback will finish us off. Last is our Amoongus, who gets Giga Drain for no damage, and I forget about the Spore again. Try it, and it doesn't work. Another Giga Drain comes our way, so we're going to use a Growth. We're then going to get hit with an Earth Power as we use another Growth. Go back to turn 1, where they Giga Drain, we get our special attack and attack up. Then a Payback is going to come our way. And at this point, I feel we're bulky enough so we can Giga Drain on the next turn and take it out. Now, all that's left is Roaring Moon, whose Booster Energy and Pro Synthesis give it an attack boost. It Dragon Claws us, and we survive on just 6 HP, allowing us to get a Spore off. Obviously, it stays asleep next turn, so we can Giga Drain into it, getting some health back. However, unfortunately for us, it wakes up on the next turn, and we are taken out here. Lost at the final hurdle. That means we have blasted off yet again. We've come all this way, though. Are we going to stop? No. Let's get right back into it. Turn 1, we do exactly the same thing as last time, as this does work out, even if it does come at the cost of our Meowth going down. Amoongus can then come out next, and it gets Zen Headbutt pretty hard, but it can use a Spore to knock it to sleep. Well, if Effect Spore hadn't gone off, it would have. It can then Giga Drain, which doesn't quite take Slitherwing out. However, it doesn't wake up on the next turn, so one more will finish it off. I wanted Amoongus in, as I know that would bait out Screamtail, and with Screamtail, we can safely switch in to Growlithe. The idea was to charm with Growlithe, but the Zen Headbutt use actually makes us flinch. This means Growlithe will go down without having done anything. Then we're going to go into Gyarados. Unfortunately, Play Rough crits us on the first turn we're in as we Dragon Dance. Luckily, we can get a few more off thanks to our Figgy Berry existing, so we do make it to +4. Then we'll Waterfall into the Screamtail, just missing the range and being knocked to 52 HP. Obviously, it will go down here, though. Next up is gonna be Flutter Mane, but it's got incredibly weak defense, so we take that out in 1. Then there is Sandy Shocks. Obviously, it's weak. You saw what happened last time, so it goes down. Brute Bonnet is then gonna come out. Now, we know it's gonna Sucker Punch, so we're just gonna set up loads of Dragon Dance. My God, it switched to Payback. It switched to Payback, so it takes us out, and we don't even get to attack. I even taught a better move so we could finish it off here. We've still got Numel. We've still got Numel. Expecting a Payback. Oh, my God. Why did it Earth Power us? Oh, I cursed expecting a Payback. Damn, that's going to mean Numel will go down here. Amoongus, you're our last bet. Come on, you need to do something, dude. Sucker Punch, that's great. That'll fail because we've decided to use Toxic. And now we know it's Sucker Punching, we can Growth. We'll just keep doing this till it runs out of Sucker Punches. Once it's used all of them up, it goes for Giga Drain, doing nothing to us, and we're going to carry on growthing. Poison has ticked up a decent bit now, though, so I decide to go for a Giga Drain, knocking it into the red and letting it be finished by the poison. It's down to Amoonguss versus Roaring Moon again. Let's see if we can do it this time. It's going to Dragon Claw. Yes, we just survive and get a Spore off. We know that it's going to be asleep, therefore we're going to bring in Cacnea. And it doesn't matter that it's only got one more turn of sleep, because the Dragon Claw knocks us to 1 thanks to our Focus Sash. We can then Destiny Bond. Now, the next turn, it's going to attack into us, and it actually takes itself down. All that's left is an Amoonguss with 5 HP. We thought Cacnea would be the saving grace of this final battle. What a hero. With all that done, James is the champion of the Paldea region, and you're gonna move on to the next video as YouTube thinks this is the next video you want to watch. Thank you for your time, and goodbye.